So I mostly, thank you so much for the question, by the way, I mostly work with business people, small business owners, entrepreneurs, if you want to call them that. And they have taken a big risk and set out on their own to set something up. Some do well straight away, most don't, most struggle, some quit. For those who carry on, what they really need to do is develop their profile. So my work is these days, and for the past 10 years or so, is in the area of helping people, entrepreneurs, to build profile through their writing and speaking. Now, that was a really exciting concept, still is, but it's become a really, really competitive space. So one of the ways in which somebody can be creative with a business book is to put a bit more thought into it, to get some help from people like myself, and to just create something a bit different. One of the areas where we work is business development and personal development. Now, the two can be seen to have a lot in common and have some overlap. So it gets very, very crowded in that space. And maybe there used to be, I don't know, 50 or 100 books coming out every year in a personal development category. Now, there are hundreds, if not thousands. And so it's very hard to rank on Amazon. It's very hard to be seen if you don't pay for advertising. And you have to be very, very clever. Now, I'm not afraid of a challenge. And one of my authors, who was ranking very low, did some lovely creative stuff to get his book seen. And that's what it takes. So writing and publishing is not for the faint-hearted anyway, as you know. But once the book is out, if people want it to do well, I think they have to be even more creative than ever. So
about business books, personal development books, and you probably have a lot of clients who identify with being infopreneurs. And that's the new term, like when people sell knowledge, they call themselves infopreneurs. And when we think of the academic definition of creativity, meaning that it needs to be original in some way and it needs to add value. A lot of infopreneurs may be adding value through the knowledge that they are packaging, but a lot of that knowledge is not new. It's regurgitated knowledge. Would you call that creative when, maybe it's packaged in a different way, but actually the knowledge is knowledge that's been based on the Greek classics and, the religious texts of thousands of years? It's just regurgitated words.
Regurgitated is such a negative word, and I know what you mean as well. Do you know what? I really don't know who said it, but probably several people, that there's really nothing new under the sun. So I've found that because of the internet and because of the availability and accessibility of information, people can spread their message widely, things get retweeted and shared, and they go viral. And so then everybody sees more and more and more, so they have access to more and more and exposed to so many things. And I think that it's more difficult than ever to be creative with your own ideas and insights, if indeed you can even call them your own ideas and insights. The work that I do these days is called thoughtful leadership. And this is based on my last book, which came out 3 years ago, called The Thoughtful Leader, funny enough. And one of the areas that we approach is how much the author or infopreneur or entrepreneur is allowing himself or herself to be influenced by ideas. The whole area is subjective, I'm sure you'd agree, Jess. It's very difficult to extract yourself out of that constant sphere of having things thrown at you and seeing all these messages and content. So we create a bubble, and it's very difficult to do, to unplug, to go offline, to put some time and effort into really good quality thinking, reflection. That's one of the techniques.
When I started my research into creativity, the first 3 years of my research, everything that I thought I was thinking up new, I found, no, it's been said before. So the first 3 years was just discarding a lot of what I thought was original thought, because with my research, I realized that people had been saying it for decades. It's just that I wasn't aware of it. So it doesn't occur in a vacuum. So how can infopreneurs be original and at the same time contextualize what they're saying?
Okay, so let's look at this maybe sequentially. So I believe that it is useful to put yourself into a vacuum, or what we call the bubble, just temporarily. And it's a very specific process that we use at Real Thought Leaders. And it tends to work if the person who's coming up with the content agrees that they've already consumed and internalized and assimilated lots of ideas. So that's the first thing. You have to acknowledge that you've been reading, you've watched videos, you've listened to people, you have been influenced. So that's the first assumption. The second stage is to consciously stop all influences just for a period of time. As I say, it's temporary. So the important part of this is to accept, it's a little bit of a spiritual thought, and maybe some of the viewers will appreciate this. Just accept that you've internalized all of this, and that it's in you, and that it's doing whatever it's doing in your brain. I'm not a scientist. And then in that peace and quiet, and there are some very specific steps and ideas that people can use, call it prayer, meditation, reflection, unplugging, all these things that you can do to create that quiet space. You can actually draw on those elements, but not just draw on them and regurgitate them, to use your word, but to use specific processes, questioning techniques. This is why I love coaching so much. We have 105 coaching questions in our repertoire, and we're adding to it all the time, to ask people to push themselves a bit more. Now, we're not used to this. I don't know how much you want me to preach on this interview, but I think we are not used to doing serious thinking, most people. In society, everything's easy. As I say, you turn on a device and you get a feed, and you get swamped with news and ideas and fake news and videos and whatever. It's very difficult not to absorb some of it. But what we don't tend to do is push ourselves to think about and make sense of and turn that input into some kind of output. And it's kind of sad, because I will give you my opinion here. I think it's sad how easy it is to just press share or retweet. I think curation has become a very poor substitute for creation. I think people have not been taught how to think. It's not their fault. So one of the things that I would encourage people to do, and that we work on every day here, is to do the right kind of thinking. And we call it pushing your thinking. Somehow or other, people need to push themselves to go beyond the obvious. And this is all in the book. I really don't want people to feel frustrated or sad if they didn't know this before. They probably have been pushing their thinking sometimes. We all know how to do this. Just, we're not in the habit. Well, we still run 2 very successful book companies. So the publishing company is a publisher. So we don't get involved in any editorial or guiding or directing, but the Book Midwife, the coaching company, is there to help people figure out if they're just being lazy or if they want to push themselves. We try not to judge, because if somebody sees their book as just a marketing tool, we get this sometimes nowadays with these infopreneur mentalities. Who are we to say they shouldn't just, slap something together? I feel a bit sad when people do that and they don't put extra thought in and they don't try to be more creative. But there's just a lot. stage is for somebody to really want to put a stake in the ground and be known as what we call a real thought leader. Now, you can't just claim that title. It's one that's bestowed on you by your market. This is what I believe. So if somebody is aspiring to make a difference, make a dent, be a real thought leader, have a bigger impact, then they're not thinking, well, I need to churn out marketing tools. You see how they're two totally separate ideas. And it's not that one is right and one is wrong. So the big question is, does someone have the intention to do more and be creative? And that is a process of self-selection. And then there are many, many processes, some of which you know about and even execute. We have processes and programs, and there are coaches, there are books. Sorry, I just heard myself say books. One of the things that we ask clients to do when they're putting together a book is keep all other books closed. I don't know if you've ever heard this before. We feel it's really important. While the book is being written. Now, if there's something that people want to check or, fact checking and that sort of thing, they can make a little note and they can check it all after. But at least to be in the bubble while writing that article, that book, while doing the script for that video, well, whatever it is, putting together content is, in my opinion, is best done in a bubble. The great thing about your question and the whole topic, Jez, is that it's all subjective. So I extricate myself from that whole situation by saying that I am not there to play God or to say this is worthy, that's not worthy, this is creative, that's not creative. I believe there's a spectrum. I also believe that you just never know which books will resonate and which books will be deemed to be creative, even though you look and think, really? There's nothing new in that. So we let go of that whole issue. It's sorry if it sounds like I'm skirting the issue and not answering your question, but our philosophy here at Panoma Press and the Book Midwife is that each person should be allowed to express himself or herself however they want. They can get input, ideas, access to the 105 questions, techniques, strategies, processes. They can get help and make it better. I do believe that. But in the end of the day, every single person wants to and is able to express himself or herself, as they're meant to. So if they push themselves, I'm their cheerleader, I'm applauding in the background. If they don't push themselves, it doesn't mean their book won't do well. And that's the total irony. I've seen books written by celebrities that have had masses of promotion that get slated because the public don't deem it anything special or good quality. We really try not to use those kind of words. And so when you're saying about creative, who am I to say if something is exceptional, original, groundbreaking? It's just my lone opinion. And I get out of a lot of tricky situations with that phrase.
It's as Mihai Csikszentmihalyi says, that it's the society that evaluates. The gatekeepers, can make accurate judgments, or they can accurately predict what society will think of it, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah, less so nowadays, I find, with all of these just phenomena that we see. Really, that platform, Snapchat, really, I just can't get on with it. But it takes off, and there's lots of unpredictability now, which I think is exciting. And so then I just throw my hands up and say, right, I'm not going to try to control stuff that I can't control, which is another whole area.
Yeah, because the question is like, creative to whom? And I suppose nowadays, that the audience, it's very difficult for any of us to predict who the audience will be with the internet. The audience could be global, the audience could be people that we don't normally access as gatekeepers, as publishers, but the writer or the creative person, they have access to them in their own life worlds.
We both know a thought leader influencer called Thomas Power. Mm-hmm. And Thomas said something very profound. I don't know how many years ago he first said it, but it has stuck with me forever. And he says, you need to embrace the law of random connections. Mm-hmm. So he was talking about you meet people and you have no idea how it's going to turn out, who they know, give people a chance, accept requests on LinkedIn. And that's where he was thinking. I've taken that a bit further and dropped the word connections and just embrace randomness, embrace unpredictability, uncertainty, the excitement of our rapidly shifting, more rapidly than ever, society and values. And just, it's crazy. If you try to control it, you go mad. So this is what I love about the work that I do. Having said that, I also embrace Malcolm Gladwell's work, and especially the idea of blink. And if I get a blink response, and if the viewers don't know about it, it's just having so much deep knowledge that you can make a snap reaction. It's almost visceral. That if I look at something and I just think, no, what I'm saying is no, it's not right for us, so we can't publish it. But it doesn't mean no, it won't do well, or there's some quirky, trendy thing probably out there that means that I'm a bit off trend and I've missed the boat. But I make some snap judgments and blink like that if it's commercial. If I'm going to invest some of my money, or I will have a gut reaction, and that includes creativity. If I think it's not original, if I'm just tired and bored of seeing that theme or that content, I reserve the right not to get involved, even if someone's paying. I think each and every one of us deserves a moment to decide if we want to make a bigger impact, if we want to push ourselves, push our thinking, be a thought leader, any of these things. And a valid answer is no. You know what? I want an easy life. I want to stay in the background. I'm nearly retiring. Whatever, that's fine. But for people who do want to make that big splash, there is still a need for creativity, for exceptional thinking, effort. It's not easy, and so there's going to be some sacrifices. I think that's the decision that needs to be made nowadays. Once you make that decision, and I think it was Goethe, and I won't try to quote the whole quote, but once that decision is made, it falls into place.
Providence. Yeah, I know that it is Goethe.
So that is all that's required. So, we can sort of let go of that big weight on our shoulders to, produce the most exciting, original, thought-leading, groundbreaking thing. No, we can forget about that and focus on our intention and just check in with ourselves, in the body, in the mind, in meditation, in the heart, is what's going on. And that is the only decision to be made. And I really firmly believe that things do start coming together when people choose to push themselves, push their thinking, and make that bigger impact.